Spices were the first ingredient in culinary history to literally cross the seas. This was many years before the birth of Christ and many millennia before the creation of what is known as world cuisine. From ancient time, spices were used not only for cooking. They constituted an important part of the pharmacopoeia in different systems of medicine. Spices were also used in ceremonial and religious rituals. An archaeological excavation in Syria unearthed a ceramic vessel containing cloves. The dating of the site was 1700 BCE. In the 70s of the last century, researchers found peppercorns stuffed in the nose of Pharaoh Ramses II's mummy. He, the greatest of ancient Egypt rulers, died in 1224 BCE. While we can only speculate about the uses to which the cloves were to have been put to, the peppercorns in Egypt was clearly for the purpose of preserving the dead pharaoh's body. The peppercorns in the pharaoh's nose came from Kerala on the other side of the Arabian Sea. The cloves found in Syria could have reached there through two routes, either by ship to the Arab coast from Kerala, or from the Indonesian islands, or by ship to China and overland through Central Asia to the land of the Arabs. The first world traders in spices were the Phoenicians. Then came the Greeks, Romans, Chinese, and Arabs. In the 1st century Common Era, a Greek-speaking sailor documented the crossing of the Arabian Sea and beyond to the Indian Ocean and the navigation of the East African coastline up to Mozambique. This work was known as the Periplus, and it noted how the wind flow generated by the annual cycle of the monsoon could be taken advantage by the sailors. Since spices, especially pepper, was an extremely costly commodity, all the trading nations kept their knowledge of the trade route secret. When the Roman Empire declined and collapsed, the secret remained with the Arabs, parts of whose land was at one time ruled by the Romans. Thus, Arabs became sole suppliers of spices to the European world. The total control of the spice trade by the Arab, and later the rise of Islam, pushed the European powers to find a new trade route to the land of spices. The discovery of the Americas by Christopher Columbus in 1492 was the first result of this drive towards geographical exploration. This historic journey did not yield any spices. One notable discovery was the chili plant. A few years later, the Portuguese sent an expedition under the leadership of Vasco da Gama to discover the spice route. The expedition sailed down the west coast of Africa, rounded the Cape of Good Hope, and moved up the east coast. In Malindi, a small port town not far from Mombasa, Da Gama hired the services of a pilot who knew how to use the trade wind and find the way to the west coast of India. Whether the sailor was an Arab or a Gujarati is still disputed. On 20th May 1498, Vasco da Gama landed at Kapad Beach, north of Calicut. Though welcomed at first by the ruler of Calicut, the Zamaran, Da Gama could not make much headway. Hence, he returned to Portugal with some spices to whet the appetite of the Portuguese king. Only 2 of the 4 ships survived the return to Portugal. These two ships brought back a cargo of spices and other products worth 60 times the cost of the voyage. It was in a subsequent trip to the Kerala coast that Da Gama managed to establish trade relations with the King of Cochin. This marked the beginning of the European control of the spice trade from India. The spices of the East were valuable in those times. During the Middle Ages, a pound of ginger was worth a sheep. A pound of mace worth 3 sheep or half a cow. Pepper, the most valuable spice of them all, was counted out in individual peppercorns, and a sack of pepper was said to be worth a man's life. Vasco da Gama's successful voyage paved the way for an intense international power struggle for control over the spice trade. For 3 centuries afterwards, the nations of Western Europe, Portugal, Spain, France, Holland, and Great Britain fought bloody wars over the spice-producing colonies.